Good morning, everybody. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I have been up since 4:30 because I woke up coughing. I drank a cup of tea for my throat. Hopefully it cleared up so I can go to work. I have been watching a lot of different videos and a lot of different, reading up on a lot of different things about what's going on in the world. But I want to read this. I read a passage, or however you want to put this, from the Havanah, Words of Nordic Wisdom. And this one kind of caught me, not by surprise, but it gave me a bit of an understanding on some of what's been going on. Anyhow, this one says, "A foolish man thinks all who speak him fair." Oops, wrong one. Well, this one's similar, but it's different. This one is actually, "A foolish man thinks all who on him smile to be his friend." Now, I'm going to stop there to break that down. What they're trying to say is, basically, some people or a foolish person will think that everybody that smiles at him is a friend. He feels it not. Basically, he doesn't feel the friendship. He does not feel like they're really friends. Although they speak ill of him when he sits among the clever. Basically, what they're saying is, a foolish man will think that everybody who smiles at him or treats him with dignity or respect is his friend, even though he doesn't feel it. But when he goes to sit with the eldermen, or the elder of the wise men of the tribe, they'll speak ill of him either behind his back or to the tribe elders, because they don't like him for whatever reason. Well, not to get on a political soapbox, and I'm not trying to. Hopefully it doesn't sound political, but it's kind of what's happening between Trump and Biden. A lot of people will be friendly and cordial, whatnot, but they'll speak illy of that person behind their back, or to the other members of the council, or the in this case the Senate, the House of Representatives, or to various public groups, news groups and whatnot. We need to stop that. We really need to stop speaking ill of a person just because of the factor of how we feel towards that person. Okay, I understand I am guilty of it because of the fact that I don't like Trump as a president for various reasons. And I'm not going to label him because that's going to get too political. Same thing with a lot of people don't like Biden because of his past or whatnot. And a lot of people are making up stories, allegations, or whatnot. We need to stop that. It's useless. It's useless. It's a waste of energy, a waste of words, a waste of time. We need to stop. We need to get off our high horses and stop belittling a person because of how we feel about them. Okay? What was the golden rule that my parents used to teach me? If you have nothing good to say about a person, don't say anything at all. And I'm not saying this now because of the fact that I'm pleased with what's going on in our government system, because it has nothing to do with that anymore. I know I flip-flop. I know I do a lot of changes. My mind changes, or my opinions change every so many days or so, but I would like to basically spend the rest of this new year focusing on making positive changes for the future. And I don't mean just for myself. I mean for the planet, the nation, the various people in our country. I hear a lot of good things about what President Biden wants to do. Now, some of the things I've heard, I'm kind of like, I don't know how well that's going to go over, but I need to stand on an oath that I made when I went into the military. Even though I didn't last very long in the military, when I went in, every person who is going into the military, once you've passed the various different tests, the medical testing to make sure you're healthy enough, the educational testing to make sure you've got a high enough education to cope with your training, and the basis of the oath is you're getting sworn in to basically protect and defend the Constitution and the people of America from both foreign and domestic terrorists. That's what every serviceman is sworn in to do. So it doesn't matter who the President of the United States is, because he is your commander-in-chief, even if you don't agree with that person. But your primary oath, your primary duty as a serviceman is to protect this country no matter whom or from what direction a threat comes from. That also includes, unfortunately, it does include if the bulk of the American people, let's say Congress decides that the current president is incapable or incompetent or unable to fulfill his duties as the president, and if called upon, the servicemen of the United States are, if they're called upon by a congressional group of people, that the president has been deemed unworthy of his office, those soldiers, those people sworn into the military, may have to go in and forcibly remove a president. It was feared for some time amongst the military personnel that they would have to do that with Donald Trump, because of the fact that he literally, and it was basically agreed upon by Congress and a correct congressional group of people, that Trump incited insurrection, which is treason. Now, I'm thankful we didn't have to have a big hubbubaloo about that. I just think we need to move forward. We need to accept the factor that we have a different president, and we have to accept the factor that not all of us like him, but we have to accept the factor he is there, and he's already working on making changes for the betterment of this nation, even though I've heard one, maybe two particular articles that he wants to do to change that I'm not in agreements with, because of the factor I don't know how well it would work, but I'm also one of those people who will be like, I'm just going to sit back and watch to see what happens. Yeah, I would like to be out there on the front line to make certain changes. You know, because a lot of the changes I've heard are like less fossil fuels, more renewable resources such as solar, wind, and hydro power, instead of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gasoline. Which brings me up to a tidbit from one of my last videos that somebody had brung up. This particular person basically brung up the factor of, why am I not upset, or why is it okay for the Keystone pipeline to be stopped and all those jobs be lost? Well, I did my research. 37 jobs in total would be lost. 37 permanent jobs would have been lost. Temporary jobs are temporary jobs. Basically, you are basically temporary, and once your job or whatever is done or whatever gets stopped, you're out of a job anyhow. 37 permanent jobs. The reason why I'm not upset the factor, or I'm okay with the factor that the Keystone pipeline is not going to go through the United States of America from Canada to the Gulf Coast. And the Keystone pipeline, by the way, if you do your research, is a Canadian company. It wouldn't have served America any good anyhow, because it would have been all Canadian money, all Canadian oil. Basically, we would not have gotten anything, or we would have gotten very little. The reason why I'm okay with the fact that the pipeline stopped is, one, is running through Native American land. Native American land is under treaty where basically, even though it's within the continental United States and the Native Americans are considered American citizens, they are essentially their own country, they have their own laws, their own taxes, their own police force, their own, basically everything within the Native American territories that was agreed upon and signed off on a treaty. They are their own people. Yes, they do have to follow certain rules and regulations and government statuses and whatnot, but for the most part, they are their own system. So basically, to run the Keystone pipeline through the Dakotas, which is primarily 90%, I think about 90% Native American territory, would have been breaking treaty. That's one. Two, the factor of the Keystone pipeline running through the continental United States, literally running through our country, is an environmental catastrophe waiting to happen, just like the Valdez incident up in Alaska. Now, if anybody watch anything that had to do with the environmental hazards and the cleanup process, the whole 9 yards that happened to Valdez, just think about that running through your farm. That pipeline bursts on your farm, your cow, your pig, your horse, your crops get contaminated by all that oil. Basically, you're pretty much SOL. Other than the fact that you can probably have a lawsuit built up against the pipeline to get reimbursed financially, but your crops, your land is basically contaminated to the point where you may or may not be able to grow crops for quite some time, and just the overall cost and process to clean up your livestock so they don't die from the contaminants and poisoning of the oil all over their body. You literally have to basically pack up and move. You don't have a home, a lifestyle, a means of income, if that's basically what your farm was your income. No, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. So the fact that the Keystone Pipeline lost 37 full-time workers over the factor of the loss of who knows how many lives and hundreds, thousands plus dollars of cleanup costs and land damages and just the environmental catastrophe as is. No, thank you. No. I'm pretty sure if that pipeline was being ran through your farm, your home, your town, city, state, I'm pretty sure you would be up in arms because of the possible pipe breaking or bursting or improper maintenance or whatever. They've shown areas of Alaska that had oil pipelines running through Alaska where, because of the length and the amount of pipes and whatnot, and the factor that they're old pipes and the bolts and joints get messed up and screwed up, and they showed areas where oil was dripping from connected pipes. And that's a combination of improper maintenance and the factor that you have 37 permanent workers on the Keystone Pipeline. And the Keystone Pipeline is going to run from Canada down to the Gulf Coast. That's hundreds of miles of piping that need to be monitored and whatnot. And only 37 permanent people are supposed to be responsible for that? I don't think so. That's not enough people for the kind of maintenance and whatnot I would want that pipeline being done on a regular basis. No. I I'm not for it. Obviously, neither is Joe Biden and a number of his uh, um, cabinet members, administrative people. Um, I agree with the president on the Keystone situation, and like I just read from the Havanah, both ex-president and current president had plenty of people who smiled and treated him with dignity and respect to their best ability. And well, I can't say much for Trump, but I can't really say much for Joe either, because he's only been in office less than a week, but he's already hammering out changes and doing exactly what he said he was going to do. Moving on. Moving on. Yeah. This is what I want. This is what I like to see. I shouldn't say I want. This is what I like to see. I like to see the American people drop the whole attitude situation, the whole separation, the whole. It's getting out of control with all these different groups who either are militia based or racial based or just. I know it's hard for changes. I know things can be very hard, but the thing is I've learned one thing in my lifetime. The harder you work on something that's difficult, the better the outcome. And the fact of that, if it's a positive outcome, you can be proud about it. You can stand back and go, I've accomplished it. I worked hard and I've gained things from it, and I'm going to appreciate the factor of how hard I worked on it, and then I'm going to appreciate the factor that it turned out in a positive manner. I know every group, every culture, every creed, every individual person has their own idea of what is right and what is wrong. I thought it was wrong when I came back to the States after spending 3 years in Germany, remembering how TV was back in the late 70s, where there was no commercials about undergarments, there was no commercials about um, tampons or anything like that. There was no commercials, very few commercials that had to do with anything of a personal or private nature, like undergarments and women's period and tampons and tobacco and things like that. At least I don't remember any commercials about tobacco or alcohol back in the 70s. And then I didn't know what to expect when I went to Germany, because it's a totally different culture, totally different country, totally different way of life. And getting there, and they would have their television program. Let's say their television program was a 45-minute long TV program without commercials. Guess what? In Germany, they didn't have commercials in the middle of the TV show. They'd have the whole TV show, and then they'd have like 30 minutes worth of commercials. Now, the commercials themselves were various products in Germany, various food items. Sometimes they'd have a commercial for the kids with two particular characters, Frick and Frack, and Frick and Frack were troublemakers, and they would show the kids how Frick and Frack would get in trouble. But at the end of the little snippet, the little commercial, um, either A, Frick and Frack got punished for their misdeeds, or had to do something to correct the misdeed. So there was commercials for kids to teach the kids right and wrong. Unlike here in America, we don't have that. Um, but when we came back to the States, I was disappointed. I was disappointed, not because of the fact that we got to leave beautiful, gorgeous Germany, but because of the fact that when we got back here, all of a sudden in the States, late 80s, 83, 84, there's commercials about underwear and tampons and pads and things that were just like, they're putting that on commercials nowadays? What happened to my country? What happened to wholesome, decent television and commercials that had, okay, I can understand, we're growing up. I mean, okay, fine, okay. This is different from America, but I also realized that in Germany, when they showed TV programs, and for the most part, it didn't matter what time of day it was. Okay, my lights just flickered. I thought my lights just flickered. Okay. It didn't matter what time of day it was for a lot of the TV shows. If there was, oh, it was my heat gearing up. If there was a television program where in the program or in the show there was a scene, I think it was mostly for the soap operas more than anything else that I can remember, but there was always, if there was a scene that had to do with a shower scene, you know, here in the States when we do shower scenes for TV, they have the special screens on the shower that you can't see what's going on. You can just tell that there's a silhouette of a naked person, or supposedly a naked person in the shower. Well, in Germany, they showed it all, the nudity of the shower scene, the whole 9 yards. And I, as a kid, I was just like shocked because, like, you know, that kind of thing. But that's because the fact that in Germany, culturally, they don't consider it wrong to show the human body. Now, granted, there was never any exposed nudity during an impassioned sex scene or anything like that. But the thing about Europe is the fact that they're not ashamed of their bodies. They're not ashamed of their sexuality or anything like that. They openly accept the the gay, lesbian community, however you want to put it, lesbian, gay, whatever, bi community. In fact, they have educational programs in school so people would understand the community. Unlike here in America, we shun them. We you know, want to wave a Bible or something like that in their faces. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with an individual's sexuality or orientation or anything like that. I know in the Bible it does say a man shall not lay with a man like he lays with a woman. I know those things. The thing is, we can't fight a growing movement. We can't continuously fighting against the black community or the Asian community or the Native American community or the Muslim community or the Jewish community or the various different religious communities. We can't continuously do that, because if we're going to continuously bicker and fight and yell at them for being who they are, we're wasting our time. We're not going to move forward. We're going to be stalemated and stuck in the mud and muck and mire. I really think that what we need to adopt the education that's happening over in Europe, so there's no misunderstandings, or so people can understand it better. I'm not saying that I condemn or no, I'm definitely saying I don't condemn them. As for accepting them, well, let's just put it this way. I got enough of an understanding about, especially the lesbian community, through my sister-in-law and my wife's cousin. Cousin? Yeah, cousin. Um, I know them. They don't try to flaunt it. They don't try to put it in my face. They don't try to um, convince me of anything other than just to understand who they are. Now, other than knowing who they are and knowing their relationship and how it happened and why it happened and various things, that's all. That's all I need to know, as I'm concerned. I don't need to know anything else. Um, Now I have I don't know if I call her my niece-in-law, but she is my wife's niece, and she doesn't feel like she's in a girl's body. She feels like she's in a man's body. So she associates herself as being a boy, but she also knows that she's a girl. As beyond that, I don't know her orientation or anything like that. I just know that she's somewhere in between. Um, I've heard various stories from various people about how they don't feel like the person that they are. They don't feel like they're in the right body. Which is kind of like, I can kind of understand, because the fact that it's not that I feel like I'm in my right body. I just feel like that my body is not in the right um, setting. And what I mean by that is, mentally, I see myself as more buff, a little bit bigger, more hair. Um, so I understand the factor of the mental imaging of, I know the body that I'm in, but I just don't feel like my body is right. Um, but I do know that I'm masculine in the sense of knowing my, I don't know if I should call it sexual orientation or just orientation. But anyhow, I feel so for some of these people, because I have had a variety of mental issues, um, besides depression and, well, yeah, I'm just gonna let you know. Back in my teens, after my family tragedy, I had manic depression, suicidal tendencies, and because of certain issues with my mom's boyfriend at the time, I wanted to off him. So I had some minor homicidal thoughts. Um, why the psychological community calls it tendencies, I don't know, because I never acted on them. I only acted once. No, be honest with yourself, James. I only acted twice on attempted suicide, and that was basically trying to swallow a whole bottle of Advil. Um, to my, I don't know if I should say my chagrin or my whatever, but all that did was put me into a state of sleep for 12 plus hours, but I didn't die. Um, but that was in the past. Now it's just dealing with seasonal depression and seasonal depression, which occurs, well, it definitely occurs around Christmas time. But I still have mental image. What do they call it? Not hallucinations, possibly fantasies. Mental fantasies of being a different person or being somebody else. Um, some people could say, "Oh, it's because you play too many video games." No, actually, the video games help me cope. Um, and a lot of doctors say, if you can find a coping mechanism that is not harmful, you should use it. So I do. But I think as a whole nation, not just me individually, but I think as a whole nation, if we can drop our issues basically with other people, whether it's because of their sexual orientation, their skin color, their religion, their creed or nationality, or however you want to put it, and stop fighting each other, this country can. I mean, this country can not only be great again, but this country could probably do things that a lot of other countries either have not done or either have already done, but we can make them better. I know for a factor that a lot of nations, they will take ideas from sister nations and use them for their benefits, and even try to, not like in a competition or anything like that, but try to make it better so everybody can learn from each other. And that's the problem, is we're so stubborn, we're so stuck on, we're the greatest nation on the planet, blah 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 blah. No, we were the greatest nation on the face of the planet. The problem is between big business and trying to find cheaper labor, or people who can do it for us for cheaper or less overhead. Whether it's that means cheaper or not, I don't know. Um, we used to make cars that everybody wanted. Detroit, Michigan, aka Motor City, used to be a thriving, booming auto industry of a city. I mean, practically the whole purpose for being Motor City was the factor of they were producing cars. I mean, Ford. I don't know where Dodge came from. Ford, Dodge, Chevy, three of the biggest American-made cars. We stopped doing it here in America because of the factor over in maybe it was I don't know, overseas someplace. They can make it for us just as fast, if not faster, using robots or non-human components, just as good as we were here in the States, but cheaper. So if you want to talk about people losing jobs because of change or stoppage, think about that one right there. Detroit, Michigan used to be pumping out cars left and right all day, all night, using people doing it. Companies couldn't compete with the speed and whatnot that China, and or not China, but Japan and a few other countries that were using robotic systems were doing. So we decided to let them make it for us. You take any car that used to be an American-made car like Ford, or even Dodge and Chevy have components that have Asiatic writing on it, because that's where that part or that component was made, if not the whole vehicle. Biden wants to make, have less foreign products and have more American-made products. Okay, that'd be great, because you know why? The more we can do factories, the more products we can make here in the States, the more jobs we can give people here in America. Think about that one right there. Think about that right there. Ooh, that's going to be another rumbling thunder, because that was a bright flash of light. But wait for it. Wait for it. Glasses are rattling. Windows. Not as bad as the last one. The last one caused me to jump. Um, just think about the fact of that our new president, a lot of things he wants to do is to make America great again. And I'm not trying to use that term because that's what Trump wanted, but it didn't happen, and I'm not getting on a political thing. I'm getting on an American thing. One of the biggest reasons why America is not moving forward like it used to be doing is because we've gotten into a point where we'd rather fight each other and bicker about who's got rights and who doesn't have rights, or bicker about, oh, this group of people are trying to force changes that would deteriorate America. No. Quit fighting about who's got what and who doesn't have what. Everybody, I don't care what the American people, I don't care what the policies are here in America. The Bible says we are all created as one. We used to literally stand up in school and do the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem, which had particular words that certain groups of people back in the 70s and 80s did not like, and that was under God. Because the word God was in the Pledge of Allegiance, they took it out of school because one atheist group, and in fact, that would be the one group that I would fight against in any way possible because of they don't believe in anything. But because somebody was not happy with the factor of the under God, one nation under God factor, we took that out of school. And ever since then, the school system has plummeted, has gone downhill. And it starts right there in school. Because if we don't educate our young ones in a healthy manner, they're not going to get a good enough or proper enough education to compete with children of the same age from different countries. They're not going to be able to handle it. The other thing, what is the problem with skin color? Why do we get uptight when the African American community peacefully marches for change, for equality that everybody else is getting? Same with the Asian American community. Why do we treat them like lesser people? Because of the factor of their skin color? It don't make no damn sense to me. Because if you did scientific study, you'd realize why the skin tone, our skin color, is different. It's a scientific factor because of the factor of our origin. The reason why white people are white is because of the factor of where we came from in Europe. In fact, even in Europe, not everybody is the same white color. Some people are slightly darker than others. People who live in the northern part of Europe are lighter than the people who live closer to the Mediterranean. You know, it's our origin, where our ancestors came from, that determines our skin tone. That is one scientific factor. The other scientific factor is the melatonin within our body that creates the skin color. Or not melatonin. Melatonin has to do with the brain. It helps you sleep. But if you don't sleep and produce enough melatonin, you don't get adequate enough sleep, which makes you bonkers. What's the word I'm thinking of that has to do with skin tone? The skin pigmentation. The starts with an M. Somebody, if you know what I'm talking about, you can put it in the comment. But it's the is it melatonin? I can't remember. I don't know the word now, but it's the part of the DNA that determines the skin color, your skin color. I've lived in Arizona where a lot of people are tan or brown, and I don't mean brown like in African American, but I mean brown like a dark tan color, like a Native American color or a South American color, because of the fact that they live closer to the equator, till it changes the pigmentation. I lived in Arizona for 11 years. I've had multiple summers where I had sunburns, and by the end of the summer, beginning of the new year, I'm back to my white color because the skin peels off after being burnt, and I'm white again. I never tanned. 11 years in Arizona, and I never tanned. Um, that in factor, after having so many sunburns, I got tired of getting sunburns and tried to stay out of the sun as much as possible. That's probably why one of the reasons why I'm more active at night, because the fact that in Arizona at nighttime, as I was getting old enough to basically be an adult and not have to worry about school, that's when I got more active because there was less sun. But still, skin color is determined by a DNA factor based on your ancestral origin. Simple as that. There's no changing it. I mean, how would you feel as a white person living in a country like Africa where predominantly most of the people are dark skin tones? How would you feel if you were the minority? There we go. There's the word I'm thinking of. How would you feel if you were the minority in a foreign country? Yes, foreign. I did say foreign country because most of the African American people who live here, and I'm not saying all, I'm just saying a good proportion of them, are here due to Dutch slavers bringing their ancestors to this country. I've never been a slave. Um, I don't know if any of my ancestors were slaves, let alone slavers. I don't know, but I will tell you this much for a factor. I'm a decent human being. I do not like the idea of slavery in any era or any form, and I'm not even going to get into that subject because that's just going to take me in a place that I don't want to go. But ooh, I'm already at 41 minutes. I didn't think I was that long. But just think about the factor that we as a nation, the American people, and I don't mean any skin tone. I mean everybody who lives in America who's an American citizen, whether you're an American citizen by birth, American citizen by choice, and got your citizenship in in one legitimate reason or another, whether it was legal, whether it was a green card legally, or like me, I was born to American parents in the Philippine Islands, and when I turned 18, I could have chosen to be either an American citizen, a Filipino citizen, or dual citizenship. I didn't get that choice. My father had it written up in his medical records and files and death, his will and whatnot, his living will, that if he passed away before I turned 18, that I'm automatically an American citizen, no choice, unless I were to apply for a dual citizenship with the Philippine Islands, which I don't plan on doing. So I'm an American citizen, both by birth and by military, however you want to put it. Um, I think if we stop all this racial bickering or religious bickering, or basically all the bickering, all the people who want to raise Cain because of this or that. I said it already earlier. Under God's eyes, we are all one people. So there's not, I just saw another flashlight. There's not Americans, Europeans, Asians, Africans, South Americans, whatever, Australians. We're all one group of people under God's eyes. So why all the problems? Because of what happened during the colonial days where the Dutch slavers were bringing people over here forcibly, or because of the fact that we can't see eye to eye because of whatever. End it. End it. We're all equal. No matter what our skin tone is, no matter where we come from, no matter what our religion, we're all equal. Um, I just want to see this nation to mend itself. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, there's no mending to be done." Yes, there is. If there is any form of racial difference, not equality. We should have racial equality. If there's a constant issue of who has rights and who doesn't have rights, if there's a constant issue of bickering between the different racial groups or whatnot, there's always we then yeah we're a broken nation, and we need mending. I mean, we have the technology and the capacity and capability of ending the usage of fossil fuels. We have the capacity and the capability of restoring our natural habitats, and restoring a balance to nature and a balance to this planet. But until we end the usage of fossil fuels and tearing down rainforests and just destroying the planet, because we are literally destroying the planet, um, things aren't going to get better. And in fact, if we continue going the way we have been going in the last, oh, 20, 40, 50, 60 years, ever since the Industrial Revolution, um, this whole mask wearing thing that we've been doing because of COVID may turn into a permanent issue where it's not just masks, it's respirators, it's hazmat suits because of acid rain and pollutants. And the worst thing that's going to happen, literally the worst thing that could happen if we don't get back to the right path, and living in harmony with not only each other but the planet itself. um, there's going to be, and I hate to say this because it sounds really, 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 really bad, but there's either going to be more children born with deformities or stillbirths, or, and I'm not talking about X-Men mutations, but mutations of one form or another that just is because of the fact that we're destroying our planet. We are destroying our environment. We're destroying everything that is good and wholesome. And I know I've talked about Armageddon and the Four Horsemen and all the different negative aspects that come out of Revelations. But here's the thing. It's not just the factor of it's being brung on by biblical prophecies and whatnot, or whatnot. Yeah, biblical things or prophecies or whatnot. We're doing it to ourselves. We have the choice given to us by God to decide and determine. It's going to be a loud rumbling one because I just saw a lot of flashes. God gave us the choice to determine our course. He gave us the ability to choose what direction we go in, what direction our leaders take. What direction our leaders take us in. And the thing is, we can all come together and make a conscious mass choice of living in harmony and peace with each other and the planet around us. But until we as individuals start doing that and start helping the rest of our nation do that and help our leaders do that, it ain't going to happen. And the biggest problem and the biggest reason why it ain't going to happen is because of the fact that we are so hell-bent on having what we want as individuals, not as a collective group of people or a collective nation. In Europe, especially in France, and I hear these stories a lot in France, that if the people want something to change, and the people start getting together in groups and protesting peacefully, not violently, of course, about the changes they want. The government makes those changes because the government knows, the leaders and ruling bodies know that if they don't keep their people happy, their nation could fall apart. And Europe has seen wars of one form or another throughout their history, throughout the European history. There's been fights over borders, there's been fights over territories, there's been fights over one thing or another. And it wasn't until World War I and World War II that it was decided to hammer out a final decision on where the borders are and who's who and what's what. And each individual nation, once they got their borders hammered out and decided and agreed upon and signed off on, that was back in the 50s that the final borders were decided, the final lines were drawn, even though they had been changed for centuries until World War I and World War II. And they realized, thanks to Adolf Hitler, that if they don't work together to keep another Hitler from coming to power, things will get worse. Now, yeah, things did get worse, not in a war situation, but things did get worse that caused a group of people to cross the ocean after the New World was found to hammer out a new lifestyle where they weren't being persecuted by the church. Because up until Columbus discovered, up until the movement to the New World after Columbus rediscovered for the third time, for the third time, the Americas. The first time it was discovered was by the people that we now call Native Americans. Second time was Lee Ferguson, a Norseman. Third and final time before the mass migration was Christopher Columbus. I try to make everybody happy by telling the historical truth. But most of the people who fled Europe to come to here were trying to escape religious persecution by the church. I don't even know what religious church, if it was Catholics, whether it was the Roman Holy Catholic Church or the English Catholic Church. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what group caused what group to leave. But this nation was hammered out by our forefathers as one nation under God. Now, if it is one nation under God, that means everybody who lives in this nation and calls this nation their home and are citizens of this nation are equal in all rights under God. Does not matter your skin tone, your creed, your culture, your religion, or any of that nonsense. It matters the fact that you're a human being, and that's all that should matter. Anyhow, I'm going to get off my rant. Doubtful I'm going to get any more rest because I'm pretty well amped up between the energy from the storm giving me energy and just doing this. My excitement, my joy, my everything I have. So, don't go there, Jim. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in the question and comment box. I will deal with them appropriately or address them as best as I can. I know I might be a little behind on some of my replies or addressings due to various events. It's very strange. I saw a flash of lightning, but I heard no thunder. Okay. But anyhow, if you're new to my channel and decide to subscribe, which is your choice, you can click on the subscribe button and a little bell will pop up, and click on that bell and YouTube will put in a notification to you when I put in my next video. Until next time, enjoy. God bless. God bless. All of a sudden I can't talk. If you're in a stormy area, be safe, whether it's heavy rains and lightning or snowstorms, because this time of year we still get them. Just be safe. Be cautious. Anyhow, good night, good day, goodbye.